Azure Databricks and Delta Lake does allow us a flexible way of building lake houses for analytics purposes. But what about that warm, fuzzy feeling that comes with SQL native workloads? Welcome, detectives. My name is Jason Richards, Microsoft Technical Trainer and Data Detective. Our next investigation begins with SQL Warehouses, the powerful relational database interface that transforms raw data into insightful discoveries. As we delve into creating and configuring these warehouses, we'll explore their versatile settings and navigate the process of creating databases and tables, harnessing the power of Delta tables. Finally, we'll master the art of creating queries and dashboards, turning complex data into captivating visualizations. Join me in the captivating case of the warehouse witness. SQL warehouses, along with their SQL endpoints, act as a relational database interface for data stored in Delta tables. From the user's perspective, they behave like any other relational database, making data analytics a seamless experience. What we don't realize is that under the hood, Delta tables are the fundamental data structure of the warehouse. We're just using a SQL endpoint to manage and query it. Let's talk about creating a SQL warehouse. In a premium tier Azure Databricks workspace, you'll find a default SQL warehouse named Starter Warehouse, which is perfect for exploring sample data and kickstarting your SQL-based analytics. Whether you choose to modify this default warehouse or create new ones, the Azure Databricks portal offers all the tools you need to manage your SQL warehouses efficiently. Our next clues to look at are the configuration options. You'll need a name for the warehouse, obviously. Next option to consider is the warehouse type, which could be classic, pro, or serverless. Serverless are recommended as they have all features, have rapid startup times between 2 to 6 seconds, and auto-scaling functionality. If selecting a Pro or Classic, next you'll have to select a cluster size, ranging from 2x small to 4x large, and optionally set an auto-stop timer to avoid any unnecessary charges. Keep in mind that if choosing Classic or Pro warehouses, an insufficient core quota for the necessary cores can halt your warehouse's creation. So ensure you have adequate quota or submit a request for additional quota if necessary. Once your SQL warehouse is up and running, then the easy part comes, creating databases and tables. Every SQL warehouse contains a default database schema named default, where you can create and analyze tables. For more complex needs, you can create custom database schemas using SQL statements like create database or create schema. The Azure Databricks portal also facilitates easy data upload and import from numerous sources, storing it in the Unity catalog as Delta tables. For those of you that want to use Python in SQL warehouse development, it is possible. The Databricks SQL connector for Python is a Python library that allows you to use Python code to run SQL commands on Databricks clusters and Databricks SQL warehouses. Our next piece of the puzzle involves creating queries. Azure Databricks SQL shines in data analytics and visualization. Use the SQL editor to craft queries with SQL select statements, save them for future use, and schedule automatic refreshes. How about viewing results? Dashboards allow you to transform query results into engaging visualizations, perfect for sharing insights across your organization. First, define data sets for the dashboard using warehouse objects or saved queries. New dashboards start with a single page, but additional pages can be added or removed with ease. When creating visualizations, these can be AI generated using the assistant or configured manually. AI can be a powerful tool for this purpose. Try utilizing prompts to get a good first draft, then change configurations as needed. This can drastically reduce time to execution. Additional features for dashboards include adding images, filters, parameters, and even cross-filtering. Schedule these dashboards for regular updates and notify subscribers via email when new data is available. Yes, detectives, it's that time again. Let's fire up the DetectoLab 5000 and get warehousing with SQL Warehouses. Welcome back, detectives. And in this case, we're cracking SQL Warehouses, queries, and dashboards. So let's take a look at this. We'll unpack all of it. So I'm in my catalog right now, and some of the previous times we've been in the DetectoLab 5000, we've made some tables and done some things. So we're going to reuse and repurpose those for this. And we're just going to go over some main concepts here just so you get a basic idea of how to create these things and kind of the concepts behind them and the logic. So let's open up SQL Warehouses, because an important note is that obviously you need a premium level service in order to get access into the SQL Warehouses. So you got to make sure that you're at premium tier warehouse level. That always comes with a serverless warehouse that's been pre-configured for you to use just right out of the box. But you can always create your own. Keep in mind that there are different computes, right? You have your all-purpose computes like your clusters, job computes that run pipelines, and then these SQL warehouses, which are different computes, and they're SQL endpoint based, right? So it's all SQL all the time. So we're going to create a new one just to show you the options in here. I'll call it demo. Actually, we'll just call it SL demo for serverless. I'm going to make this extra small, and you can see the costing is the Databricks units. And I can select an auto stop time. This could be for serverless. You can also select the auto stop for a regular compute. Now, a serverless will start up on its own, and it will stop after inactivity, after a defined amount of inactivity. But honestly, in some demonstrations I've saw, the serverless is pretty performant out of the box. Now, remember, the compute is separate from the data, so you could test these out, different, pro, a classic, or serverless, to see which is going to work best for your scenario. But I would definitely iterate and try those out. I'm going to use the serverless. They spin up real fast, usually 5 to 10 seconds. It's on and running, and then you can use it from there. Also, I want to show you the inactivity for this. It's a minimum of 5 for the serverless. For the pro, it's a minimum of 10. If you select it, it's going to change that to 10. There is an API that you can programmatically create warehouses with, and you can lower that granularity level a little bit if you want it to stop after a lower amount of inactivity, say a minute or 2 minutes or something like that. We'll keep this at 10. The other thing I want to show is the advanced options. So you can apply tags to this for, again, billing tracking or management tracking or whatever that looks like, administrative purposes. If you have Unity Catalog enabled on your workspace, so this Unity Catalog is a newer feature, you can always, migrate to a newer version of it. But if you already have it, use it, because then we can cross-query across all of our Unity Catalog resources. You can also opt in for preview features. They do put a caveat in here that if you do enable this, it may take a little longer for your serverless SQL or your serverless warehouse to start up, but we'll leave it on current for this case. And the only other option I want to show you is that if you choose Pro or Classic, you do have the option of leveraging spot instances. It automatically does this with the serverless version. Or it optimizes for cost on the serverless version. But on the Pro or the Classic, if you want to utilize spot instances, you can tell it what policy that you want to apply to it. Do I want it to be more reliable or have more uptime, meaning I don't want any distractions or cutoffs, or do I want to optimize it for cost? I'll go ahead and create this. And after it's created, we can also manage the permissions for it. For anybody else that may be connected to my workspace. I don't have anybody right here, but you get the gist of it. This one, it's spun up super quick. We're talking seconds here. So let's go back into the SQL editor and we'll connect to this one. So I need to attach to a compute just like I would with any notebook, right? And then I have the option to use a built-in type of SQL query application that Databricks built into their workspace itself. You can see that I'm tied into my current catalog and my default, but I could switch these if I wanted to. It gives me the options to switch between catalogs and schemas or databases that are contained within. So let's do something real quick. We're gonna, just to show you that, I'm gonna create a schema and I'm gonna call that schema demo. So this should show up under, since I'm in this catalog, this should show up under my DDDBWS catalog. And since I'm creating a new schema, so now I can create objects. So I can create objects, add data to objects. I can do all those things as long as I have the proper permissions and connections established. If I need to bring in external data, just know if you create tables, table objects, things of that nature, they are in the Delta table format, which is Delta Parquet or Parquet files along with the Delta log or that transaction log that comes with it. And I don't necessarily have to be in, you can do 3-part naming conventions if we want to perform cross-database querying. So even though I'm in this defined catalog and this defined schema, you would think that I have to be in here in order to query what's in here, but I don't necessarily have to do that. So I can do a select star and use a 3-part naming convention. So if I want to use my DDD that and then use a different one, I think I do have something in Delta Lake here. I have my IoT data and I can run that. You can see that the query will still pop up. So what does this tell me? This tells me that I have the capability of doing cross-database querying using 3-part naming conventions here in Databricks. So if I have tables in different catalogs, I can perform 3-part naming conventions, join these catalogs together to do pretty advanced querying options in here. If I want to save this query for use later on, now you can see it gives me a name, right? And I can change the name. I'll call this demo query just to save this and persist it. All those save queries end up here in the queries, right? So if I have popular queries or common queries that I want to reuse or utilize over and over again, I can save them here and then come back anytime and access those. It even shows who created them and when it was created at. So that gives me, good insight into what I can do from a query perspective. I also want to note, and this is also pretty cool. Let's see, if I open up a new notebook, let's say I want to do some things. Let's say I want to do SQL-like things with my serverless SQL pool. Here, you can see that I can actually connect a notebook to that serverless warehouse, and then I can perform SQL operations right here in a notebook. So if I already have a notebook developed that's in native SQL, Databricks friendly SQL language, then I can generate entire scripts here that will create tables, do other things with it. And if it's in a notebook format, I include those in pipelines and do other things. So possibilities get expanded out significantly when you consider that you can attach your compute, this warehouse, to a notebook and then programmatically do things with that warehouse there. So one of the other things I want to talk about here are dashboards. Obviously, dashboards are visualizations. They're usually going to contain your key performance indicators, although you can create multiple page dashboards in Databricks. They have some sample ones here, but let's use some data that we already have. So let's create a dashboard. This way I can show off some of the features in here. And you can see that it gives you some, there's a canvas view, there's a data view. I can add pages to it from here. We're connected to our serverless, right? And if I want to publish the dashboard, I can at some point and share it, which would give me a link, an HTTPS link that I can share with others as long as they have access to the workspace and ergo this report or dashboard. then they would be able to open up the link and be able to view it. So you can see that there's a drag and drop tool, there's a visualization tool, text box tool, and a filter tool. Text box is pretty cut and dry. So what we'll do is we'll create a couple visualizations here. And what data do we want to use? Well, you can see here that there's no data set in here. Well, how do I get data in here? I can go to my data tab and I can either create it from a SQL statement. So if I want to perform a select query operation, I can do that. I'm going to keep it pretty simple and look at all the tables. So this one's a pretty decent sized table. We'll look at the people one and confirm that. And you can see it just generates a query from that. Now I have a data set. I can go back in here and now I should have this people 10M data set. A couple other things I want to point out here. This is very cool, by the way. The AI assistant that's built in here also has the capabilities of generating visualizations on your behalf. So there's a couple here that are interesting, like the gender distribution and salary distribution. I think I'm going to do those. Now, this isn't the greatest because I think it tries to add a count, which it can't really perform. It's trying to perform a count operation on a count column, which doesn't really happen. But what we can do is we can add a y-axis here and go by ID, right? Now, and you can see that there are I can select, by the way, if this was categorical or quantitative, I can select which ones are which. I can select which type of aggregation to apply to this, so I can change that capability as well as the display name that's going to show in the actual. And again, I can do these. There's some options here that I can change for the fields in the x-axis as well. So this gives me a distribution of how many females and males were in the data set here. And then we'll create another visual. Actually, I should probably accept this one. And then we're going to do salary. How about we do this one by ourselves? We'll just do salary on, actually, I want the salary on the y-axis. And on the x-axis, I want gender on this one as well. And I'm going to do average salary because the sum, right? So I'm going to do average salary on this. So you can see that I can also change colors with this as well. So the colors of the labels. And now I have two visuals here that I've created. Another thing that's built into this is the capability of doing filtering or interaction, like cross-highlight interactivity. So if I select certain values within certain visuals, it will cross-highlight or cross-filter visuals in other visualizations in my data set. So I can click outside and get that information in here. Now, what does a filter do? Well, a filter allows me to filter the information in the entire page of the report here. So what I can do is I can add a single value. In fact, we could just do a date range picker. This is pretty, it's going to be pretty significant how much this is going to filter, because I would rather have split the data up by year, month, and whatever from a granularity perspective. But now I can select dates. Now, I don't think we have any data before 2000. So what we'll do is we'll pick out dates from 1990, from the end of December 1990 to December 2000, right? And that's just going to filter out the data that's located within this filter that I've defined and set that up if I needed to. So filtering I can apply, the visualizations I can apply, and then when I'm ready, I can publish this to a dashboard. Right? And then I can, again, here's the link, right? So now if I have this link, and I go to an in private browser, and I got multi-factor authentication on here. This should pull up the dashboard here. So now I have the actual, this is how it would appear if I was going to access this. So it provides me a link so I can get access to the dashboards and do, view these. If I have permissions to edit it, I can perform manual refreshes on the data for the report itself. I could schedule refreshes for it, as well as share this with others. Right, or take a full screen approach and take a look at the data that way. So there you go. That kind of covers SQL warehouses, opening up the SQL editor to query our data, and then creating dashboards based off of tables that we've created or queries that we've performed for specific data sets, and create visualizations off these, edit them, get interactivity between the visuals, and share these reports or dashboards out to others. I consider this case closed, so let's head on back. There we have it, detectives. We've unlocked the secrets of SQL warehouses, delved into the creation of databases and tables, and mastered the art of crafting insightful queries and dashboards. Remember, with Azure Databricks and its powerful SQL capabilities, the mysteries of your data are just waiting to be uncovered. Thanks for joining.